Hey there everybody, and welcome to the latest video on living into your brilliance, the place where I do my best to shine a light on the innate brilliance of you and I and all of us, and blow up the thought-created illusions that get in the way. Today we're going to look at the 4 key ingredients that help us all to dream big and play bigger. And we're going to dive into that, and this is going to be a part 1, I think, of a 2-part series, because first of all, we're going to look at what's on offer if we really are if we're really prepared to allow ourselves to dream big and to play bigger. What's there? And then part 2, what I'm going to look at is what gets in the way. What do we need to let go of in order to really step into this? So I want you to almost think of it as 2 sides of the same coin. And today we're going to look at one side, which is like where the dream and the action and like our true desires live. And tomorrow, or in the next video, I'm going to look at how we get rid of some of the things that stop us and get in the way. So let's dive in. Dream big, play bigger. What are the key ingredients? Well, the first thing that we need to know is, what is our vision? What is our truth? What are we excited about? What are we being drawn towards? Even if it might sometimes be that we're reluctant to do it. So we're going to look at the very first ingredient, which is vision. Number 2, emotional connection. If you don't feel it in here, if we're not excited, if it doesn't tickle our soul, chances are we're not really going to be all in our vision. When we really are aligned with what's going on inside of us, we feel it. And we want to have that emotional connection. Sometimes we will talk about that as purpose or our why, our knowing. It's just that feeling. I would love that. We've got to really capture that energy, which then leads us to the third ingredient, the third C. Commitment. Psychological commitment. Making the decision that we're in. Sometimes we can almost fall into the trap of thinking, well, if I've got a vision and I feel really excited by it, that's enough. And it almost is. But we really have to kind of do a little bit of objective introspection to go, hey, am I in? Because if I am in, this is how I will know. We will be taking action. The first step, in many ways, is the most important step. Because that action means that we're not sitting on the outside, we've moved in to our dream. But what we really want to have is consistency of action, where we keep showing up again and again to our vision and playing all out. And that is a practice, and we're going to look at how can we practice that. So I'm going to go through these 4 ingredients today and offer up some perspectives for you that hopefully will help you to start getting your ingredients on the table and bake the tastiest cake you could possibly consume. So here's a question. Where does the future come from? I want you to ponder that for a second. I can remember the first time I got asked this question. Where does the future come from? Where does it live? What do you think? Some people might say, well, it lives in the actions we take. Be like, yeah, I think that's probably true. When I got asked this question, I was really flummoxed. And then the person said to me, Alan, where the future lives in our words. Future doesn't really exist. There's only a perpetual now. But the idea of a future, our vision, what we see, our dream, it comes from our words. We speak it into existence. There is nothing man-made. Think about this for a second. There is nothing man-made that exists in the world that didn't start as an idea inside someone's head. But the very next thing, the very next thing that happens after it was in their head, was they spoke it into the world. Whether it's a light bulb, a telephone, car, just think about anything. Someone said, yeah, that would be a cool idea. Well, I guess I'm going to start talking about it, and I'm going to start then taking action on it. So we want to think about that as an idea, that the birthplace of everything is an idea inside our mind, and then we speak it into the world. And at some point, it comes into reality. So what I would love for you to be thinking about after watching this video is, if you don't have your vision, to really set aside some time to craft your vision, to uncork the bottle of your dreams and allow them out and see what's there. See what's really what you're really excited about. I know that everything that you're looking for already exists inside of you, that your dreams and your visions, they're there for a reason, but we have to make sure we create the space to let them out. And so it's starting from within. It's creating space not to think, what is my vision, but to really go in and think, what's alive inside of me that wants to come out. And it's a visualization exercise. I often say to people, step into some point in the future and be there. I would say start it on, it's, January 2030. I'm sat in my favorite chair, having my favorite drink. Perhaps I'm watching the sunset, and the sun is setting on another year. It's been the most amazing year. My life is exactly the way I would love it to be. And then you describe everything you see, everything you hear, everything you feel. And you just allow it to come out onto the page. And as best you can, what we want to do is we want to embrace that. We want to just not put any barriers up around our imagination. We want to be like, I'm just going to have fun seeing what comes forth. And when I notice myself having thoughts about, wow, that's not realistic, or who am I to think that, we're just going to park them. We're just going to put them to one side and say, you know what, I don't have to worry about that right now. Because this time, this space is just about allowing my imagination to come onto the page, to create that compelling vision. And I want you to avoid one thing in particular. I actually have quite a scary slide that I've not used here today. It's a picture of the Grim Reaper. Because the Grim Reaper of our dreams is the question of how. And your ego is going to want to challenge you to be like, well, how can you do this? How will we do this? And the only answer is, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm not worried about the how right now. I'm really living in the what. What is it that I'm excited about? Because when we come to action, we'll talk about how our dreams come into reality. But the first starting point is the vision. Crafting our vision. Clarity of vision. Just allowing that to come out. And all you got to ask yourself is, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to accept your vision? Like whatever is there, just accept it. Don't try and logic it. Don't try and rationale it. Just accept it. Speak it. Speak it into the world. I just released my latest newsletter. It's the 11th of December, 2024. And I put some elements of my 2025 vision. I actually put some elements of my real big live into your brilliance vision, which is, about having a global apparel brand and speaking on the biggest stages and creating content and programs that change people's lives. I am so connected to that, and I have to practice speaking that into the world, because the more I speak it into the world, the more the universe is going to respond and come and play with me, but the more I'm going to start to embody it and feel it. The more I speak it, the more I feel it, then the more I'm going to act on it. So I really want you to think about, like, you have to start by accepting your vision and allowing this clarity to emerge. And one final point on vision. Most of us think our vision is the future, that what we're catching a glimpse of is the future that we're supposed to create. But I want you to think about it differently. Your vision isn't of the future. Your vision is a present moment experience. It's what you're fired up by in your imagination. And I want you to think about it as an invitation for you to move forward. Our visions, thankfully, and our dreams, they have to be compelling enough to draw us forward. But it might not be, the thing we're meant to see might not be exactly what's in our vision, but it could be something even better that we just don't know about yet. So let me give you a really simple example. Myself and my best mate Dunk, we go hiking every year. Last year we went up into Scotland. And one of the days we're like, oh, there's this place called Steel Waterfall. And we're like, do you know what would be really cool? It'd be great to hike up to the waterfall and to see that, because we'd not done it before. So we're like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go and do that. So as we hike up, and we're getting close to the waterfall, we didn't realize that there's essentially a small river that kind of you got to cross to get to the waterfall. And there was a steel bridge we had to get over, and we both got really nervous about the steel bridge. We were like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was going to have to navigate this, and this is me just going over the bridge. I was very slow because I didn't quite like the experience, even though there was really nothing to be scared of. But we crossed the bridge and we saw the waterfall. The waterfall was beautiful. But then on the way back, we thought, we'll avoid the bridge, and we went down a different path. And we managed to jump across these rocks to get across the river, and we thought, that's cool, that was easier. But what we'd actually done was we jumped onto a kind of island, and we couldn't get back the way we'd come over. And so we ended up having to kind of strip off our shoes, socks, pants, and we had to wade across the river. And it was the most fun experience ever. Like, we laughed so much. And, you know, that's a picture of me after I'd crossed over. And it was cold, man. That river was cold. But it was an incredible experience. And so, as it turns out, the waterfall was the invitation. What turned out to be on offer was this incredibly fun experience of crossing the steel bridge and then coming back the other way. But we couldn't have imagined that. We couldn't have known that in advance. We had to just trust that what had come forth in our desire was to go and see that waterfall and to act on it. Now, that's just a simple example. But I would really hope that you can see what's on offer in that, because when we create our vision as a destination, a place that we have to get to, we create a sense of pressure. Like, it can become a burden when we think, well, it's my job to create that. It's not your job to create anything. Your job, if there is a job, is to trust yourself and to accept the invitation that's on offer and step into it to see where it's going to lead. Actually, just before I move on to that, because we've really captured the first two parts of the recipe. We've captured clarity of vision. And we've also really captured the emotional connection. You know, because the acceptance of the vision, if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't have that, it's not that it's the right vision. I mean that, you know, that feeling where you're like, oh, and you almost want it to be borderline, you know, kind of exciting and a little bit edgy, you know? Our visions and our dreams are really big dreams. They're edgy in some ways because we've got to step into the unknown. So the first and second ingredients are very close together. You know, as we're letting it out, we're kind of just noticing what's going on inside of us. We're like, yeah, man, like this is it. This is the thing. If this was true, I would frickin' love it. And that's the telltale sign. And then we come to this next ingredient, which is commitment. It's the psychological commitment. And I think about it like writing the check, you know, sending the money to somewhere else. And I use this example again of we did a renovation of our kitchen, kind of the downstairs of our house, about 2 years ago. And this is not the kitchen that we have now. This is just a stock image. But we had so much fun in the vision stage, you know, imagining, oh, what colors do we want? And maybe we could move this. And we moved rooms around. We were like, let's put the utility to the back of the house because or to the front because it was at the back, but it was beside our kind of outdoor eating area. And like, I used to hate that. And so we were like, yeah, let's move all these things around. And at some point, it dropped, you know, it just dropped in. We were like, whoa, that's it. Man, that feels good. And then we had to decide, are we a yes? Like we were a yes here, but were we committing a yes? And for me, that was, okay, you know, writing a check to the builder. There's the deposit, you know, to the kitchen maker, saying, we're in, let's go. And this is an actual picture from my kitchen. But it's not a kitchen, it's a hole in the ground. Because once we got in, we realized that the floorboards underneath the existing tiles were rotten. We had to remove everything out. It got really messy. You know, there were so many things we didn't know were going to happen. And we had to keep coming back to our vision to remind ourselves of, yeah, like, hang on, remember, that's what we're connected to. Let's keep playing. So we have to move from that emotional connection into that psychological commitment and go, yeah, I'm in, we're in. And it's going in with our eyes wide open. Man, this is likely to get messy, but we've done the work to get clear on what's calling us forth, and we're going to stay faithful to that as it gets messy. But let's go and let's take the first action. And that first action is whatever represents writing that check, because that is the crucial thing, that we're in. We've taken the step. And then it's staying the course. You know, are we willing to stay even when we don't feel like it? And this is what I think is really important for us to be honest about. You know, we're not going to wake up every day and be like, whoa, clicking our heels together and loving every moment. Like, some parts of life are tough. Even when we're operating and acting in pursuit or in alignment with our calling, it still gets funky. It gets challenging. Sometimes the road does not always look clear. And so we have to go, well, how do we really tap into consistency? How do we take consistent action, even when sometimes we may not feel like it? And so the first thing we just have to remember is, what is our motivation? What is our motive for action? And I want to be really clear here on the distinction. I'm not talking about feeling motivated. I'm talking about our motive for action, our actual motivation, which is the vision itself, and coming back to that and reminding ourselves of our why. Oh yeah, like that's my motive for the action I'm taking. The second thing then is, we want to be really clear on the practice. What are the actions that I'm committing to taking consistently? So let's imagine you have a vision to become the healthiest you've ever been. You're like, I really want to live. I've just feel a calling to kind of live a healthy lifestyle, well, then you might be like, well, actually, it's my eating habits and exercise and whatever, my meditation. They're some of the practices. If it's building a business, you might have, I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and he was like, one of the practices, the actions I've identified as a power hour. I'm going to have 3 or 4 power hours each week where I'm reaching out to new people. Like, that's the action that I know is going to be important. And we can, no matter what our vision is, we can, once we know what our motive for action is, we can take the time to create a menu of options for action. Wow, these ones, and these are the ones I really want to be consistent on. And once we've got those, then we can look at, well, am I prepared to be disciplined about it? And discipline is the willingness to do the action repeatedly. And I always say that discipline is required now and again. So let's just say that friend of mine who's got the 4 power hours, let's call it 4. In 3 days, he's just like, I'm so pumped to get into it. He's just he's doing it each day. That's not necessarily discipline. That's doing it. But on the 4th day, he wakes up and, maybe he's had a couple of drinks the night before, or he's not slept well because his kid was ill. He's feeling a bit tired and a bit funky. But he's like, this is my power hour. And then it's trusting, you know what? I'm willing to just show up to the action in this moment. And that's the discipline. And we don't have to be perfect about it. You might be watching this thinking, oh, right, so it's kind of that hustle thing, like no matter what, you show up. No, it's not that. Like, if you're ill, if something has really happened that just knocks you off your game and you can't get it done, that's okay. Like, be kind to yourself. But let's be clear on the difference between being kind to ourselves and just letting ourselves off the hook. Because we know when we're letting ourselves off the hook, and we know when we're being kind to ourselves. And that's something that I want us to be really mindful of doing, both and. But more often than not, in my experience, in my personal experience, there's more of a requirement for just really tapping into that. Oh no, this is not one of those moments I need to be kind to myself. That this is my time. I just don't feel like it at the moment, but I'm not going to get too bogged down in my transient feeling, my transient thoughts about, why it would be better for me to not do it. I'm just going to stick to my commitment. So we can just, to simplify this for you, your motivation, your why, this is my why, my motive for action, my vision, my practice, these are my actions, this is my menu of the things that I know to do, and my discipline is my how. Like, my discipline is one of my hows. And for the most part, these things, one of the reasons I said how is a dream killer earlier, is when we get to this stage, like, the actions just show themselves to us. They're really simple. We don't need to know the 20 things. We might just need to know the 1 thing or the 2 things, and do them, and trust that if something new emerges, you'll know what it is. Look at that. Isn't that dreadful? So there's real life coming in. What am I going to do? Will I stop the recording? Will I keep going? I should have put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I didn't. And that's all okay, because I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to put it on Do Not Disturb, because that's life. Life is a bit messy. What a great interjection from me right there. And just as I bring this to a close, this is perhaps one of the most important things that we can really accept. You can't get it wrong. Like, you cannot get it wrong. You are always doing your best. And you might be wondering why I'm showing 2 pictures of the Gladiators. Hopefully most of you know that game show. And of Jim Carrey. And it's because, when we're lost to the idea of right and wrong and good and bad, all that is us being judgmental. And I've never really found being judgmental to be that useful. whether I'm judging myself or other people, it just seems to be a terribly bad habit that we use to give ourselves flack when things haven't necessarily worked out the way that we imagined they would, as though somehow it was our action that we could have known that in advance. Well, we couldn't have known that in advance. Or we cause ourselves to be paralyzed because we think that there is a right way and we've got to figure out that. Well, it's just not on offer. Like, there's just what feels right in the moment. You do your best. If it doesn't work out, then you make another decision. And the reason I have Jim Carrey on here is because Jim Carrey talks about his dad, and his dad, I believe, was like had the opportunity to be a musician, a comedian. Like, he was really talented from an entertainment kind of industry perspective. But he had a family. And so he made a decision, which was, you know what, the right thing to do for my family is to kind of let go of that dream. And he went and he became an accountant, which is nothing wrong with that. But at one point he lost his job. He got made redundant, and the family went through some really tough times. And Jim Carrey talked about how he realized in that moment, like, there's no such thing as a safe option. Like, whether it looks safe or risky, it's just the same. You know, the risky option or the safe one, life will throw its curveballs to you one way or the other. So you might as well get after your dreams. And the reason for the gladiators is, if you've ever noticed this when they're doing this, the kind of swing game, you kind of see 2 or 3 different personas. It's a really tentative person. They get on and they're going slow, but they start to lose momentum because they're trying to find the perfect way. And I don't want to be taken down, and they're being a bit fearful, and they just lose momentum. And then even when they see the way to go, they can't regenerate the momentum. The gladiator takes them out. And then there's the other person who just goes for it, you know, and they swing, and then that way gets blocked off, and they swing another way. And you know what? Maybe they get taken down, maybe they make it across, but they're in the game. Like, they're playing. They're like that, it's over here, the man in the arena. And so it doesn't really matter victory or defeat, but they know they're in the arena. And just sometimes, when we just see it and we're like, I'm just going to go for it, we just go bump, 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 and we're through. And it's so much simpler than we thought. And so it's just remembering it's less about the rope and more about the swing. There's no right rope. There's no wrong rope. There's no best rope. There's just the next swing that you think, well, that's what feels right. I'm going to go and do that. And see what happens when I do that. Coming back to that idea of the invitation versus the destination. So it's a reminder. Like, what does your ingredients look like? Have you got all 4 of them? If there's something missing, come back to them. Are you clear on your vision? Are you super connected to it? Like, is it in here, in your heart? Have you made the decision that you're in? And if you have you taken the action? And are you taking the action consistently? Because that's all we need to do. We just have to accept our dreams and then act on them, one action at a time. And that's the key. And it's not always easy, but it's actually much simpler than we think. We just have to be prepared to allow it all to come forward, and then to trust that whatever that is, that was meant for us. That was meant for you. And the only thing you've got to do, your only job, is to trust that and act on it and see where it leads. I hope you've enjoyed this video. You are brilliant. It's not a case of finding your brilliance. This is all about living into your brilliance. And as I said, in the next video, we're going to look at how we can blow up some of the illusions that might get in the way of the simplicity of these 4 ingredients, so that we can have both sides of the same coin. We can see through the stories on one side, so that we can come back to our truth on the other. That's the game we're playing. That is living into your brilliance. So you are brilliant. See it, own it, live into it.